Hello and welcome back to one of the final videos of the course. I first want to congratulate you for making it this far through the course. You've done really well. You've put in a lot of effort to get this far, and it will certainly help you when you do take the test. So I want to congratulate you for showing the discipline and hard work of getting this far. So one final thing I want to show you is how to put these steps into action from start to finish when writing an essay. And we're going to do that now. If you think back to nearer the start of the course, I introduced you to the overall writing process. Perhaps you can remember. Step 1 was preparing to write. Step 2 is writing the introduction. Step 3 is writing the body paragraphs. Step 4 is writing the conclusion. And step 5 is checking your essay. We're now going to go through these steps as we answer a real IELTS question from 2016. And here's the question we're going to be answering. So, the prevention of health problems and illness is more important than treatment and medicine. Government funding should reflect this. To what extent do you agree? Now, if you remember, the first thing we will do is underline keywords in the question. So, I'll be underlining prevention, health problems and illness, treatment and medicine, and funding. I'm next going to decide what type of question this is, and because it says to what extent do you agree, it's an opinion question. So I'm just going to jot down opinion question. So now that reminds me of the essay structure that I need to use. And the next thing I'll do is jot down some synonyms or paraphrases for any of the words in this question. So instead of prevention, we might have protection from, or even stopping. Health problems and illnesses, you could have perhaps diseases, health issues, wellness concerns. For treatment and medicine, you might have cures, rehabilitation, drugs, and for government funding, you might have expenditure or perhaps priorities. So, the next thing I'll do is create my essay plan that I can refer back to whilst I'm writing the essay, and this should be quite straightforward. You'll be able to do this on the question paper because there'll be a lot of space directly underneath the question, and that's where you'll jot down this plan. So your plan, if you remember, the introduction, you do RRR, which is to rephrase the question, to respond to the question if you need to give your opinion, and then to reveal what you're going to do in the rest of the essay. Now I need to think of my body paragraph. I've already labeled this an opinion question, so I need to think of my opinion to the question. And to what extent do you agree? Well, actually I completely agree that prevention of health problems is more important than treating them. So I'm sure on that. I just need reasons for my topic sentences, and I think my first reason that would be prevention is generally cheaper. It's normally a lot cheaper to prevent things and stop them happening rather than fix them after they've happened, especially with medicine, because that can take a lot of research to create, so prices are often high. So that's my idea for the topic sentences of the body paragraph 1. Body paragraph 2, I need more reasons. Well, drug companies are private companies, so they often overcharge for their medicine, and they don't really care if that's fair or not. And that also gives them a lot of power, because basically they have the key to life for some people that are ill. So that can be quite unfair because they could charge unreasonably high prices. So that's my ideas for the second body paragraph, and the conclusion is very simple. We summarize the main arguments by looking at the two main topic sentences and then restating our opinion, which is totally agree. So I've jotted that down as well, so I can refer back to that whenever I need. Right, let's get started with the introduction. So I'm going to rephrase the question, and I'm going to say governments should invest more in preventing health issues rather than in the purchase of pharmaceuticals. Notice how I've used some of the synonyms that I jotted down whilst I was reading the question the first time through. Now I'm going to add my response, because it's an opinion question, so it needs my response, and I'm also going to reveal what I'm going to do in the essay. So here's what I've written. I firmly agree with this position, and I shall outline my reasons for this in the following paragraphs. Notice how I've put my response and my revealing sentence into one complex sentence, and you further notice that the two clauses are independent clauses, so they're both short sentences that make sense on their own, but I've joined them together and I need the comma there after the first independent clause. Obviously, I now need my first topic sentence of my first body paragraph, and I'm going to start with, in the long term, from a financial viewpoint, prevention is far better than cure. Notice the comma after the first cohesive device, in the long term. And also notice it's not too long or complex, this sentence. It's giving my opinion, and it's very clear and direct in what it's saying. It's not too specific at this point. Next, I'm going to add a supporting sentence. So, if governments focus only on treatment through drugs, then they will be spending most of their healthcare budget on this alone. And here I've used a first conditional sentence. Notice the if and the will that indicate it's a first conditional sentence, and this is a complex sentence, so it's really good to use these to demonstrate my range of grammar. Now I'm going to add a second supporting sentence, which reads, however, if they focus on prevention, then they will provide a greater overall benefit to the population and may still have enough in the budget for some short-term spending on medicines. Notice how I've started the sentence with a cohesive device, and I've used a cohesive device of contrast because the rest of the sentence, which is first conditional again, now provides a contrast to the preceding sentence. This sentence is telling us what the consequences or the outcome could be if they focused on prevention rather than just spending the money on the drugs. So it's quite a neat trick to do, is to use two conditional sentences in a row to show the two different possible outcomes, and that's what we've done here. We've also added another final clause onto the end with and to offer some further explanation here. So it's a nice complex sentence here which should impress the examiners. And I'm going to finish up this paragraph by inserting an example. So the cohesive device I'm going to use is for instance. So for instance, comma, recent research by Mintel Marketing Limited shows that of the 14.3 million people that died of heart disease in the US in 2016, 36% of those could have been prevented through earlier education about the disease. So notice I've used a really specific example there. I've inserted facts and figures which are very specific. 14.3 in the US in 2016 and 36%. This adds a lot of credibility to my paragraph, and guess where I got those figures from? Yes, you're correct, I completely made them up, and you should too. And this is a really great way to support my point and finish off that first body paragraph. So the second body paragraph is also going to argue for the same point of view, and of course we're going to start with a topic sentence, and that reads, it should also be noted that drug companies are only interested in making a profit and not the health of a nation. So again, this is the main argument, and it's not too specific at this point. That can come later in the paragraph. I'm going to add a supporting sentence next for that topic sentence, and it reads, if they knew the government was relying on their medications alone, then they would certainly increase their prices to be as high as possible. And again, you'll notice I've used a second conditional sentence here, which means I have to use a slightly different grammar structure. So I have to use past simple for the verb in the first clause. So if they knew, that's verb 2, and I also have to use would, as this is more of an imaginary thing that we're talking about for the future. So we've shown off our control of grammar there by using a second conditional sentence here. And I'm going to complete the paragraph with an example. So, indeed, this has already happened in the US, where terminally ill patients are often forced to pay the astronomical prices set by drug companies if they wish to use the potentially life-saving medicines they produce. So notice that the sentence starts with a cohesive device, indeed, so that needs a comma after it, and there's also a final clause added on to the end of the sentence which starts with if, so we're going to have a comma before that as well. That example's not as specific as the previous example, but nevertheless it does support the topic sentence very well. And finally we can move on to our conclusion. And the first thing we need to do in our conclusion is to summarize our main points. And remember, we do that just by quickly rereading our two main topic sentences and then trying to combine them together and repeat them by using different words where possible. Here I've come up with, in conclusion, as well as being overly costly to the taxpayer, more people will be helped through a focus on prevention rather than cure. So I've given a sort of nice overview of both of the paragraphs there. And again, the comma after the first cohesive device in conclusion. The final sentence of the essay now needs to make sure we directly re-answer the question, so it's worth reminding yourself what the original question was asking, and it was asking, to what extent do you agree? So in the introduction I said I firmly agree with this position, so in the conclusion here I'm restating that. I'm restating that I therefore remain strongly in favour of government spending on education to protect the public's health. And that clearly states the opinion and answers the question. So that's the essay written, and a quick word count there is 263. But of course that's not the end of the process. You should still have 5 or 10 minutes left to go through your essay and check for errors in punctuation and grammar and spelling. So you'd quickly scan through the essay here, looking for those types of things. Commas, are they there? Are they in the right places? Apostrophes, are they in the right? Are they there for possessives? Are your articles there? A, an, and the. Are they in the correct place? Is your referencing correct? Is it clear who you're talking about or referring to all the time? Have you got your capital letters? Have you got your full stops? You should also be thinking about the common mistakes that you have made previously in your practice essays. They're things that you need to specifically look for when you're checking your answer. And doing this can really help to tighten up and maximize the band score you're going to get from your essay. Okay, so I hope you found that useful, going through the whole process in one go. I know it's quite a long video again, but it's really useful to recap on this, and obviously you can come back and listen to this at any time to remind yourself of the whole process in action. Okay, so it's been great having you watching these videos. I've really enjoyed delivering these to you, and I wish you every success for the future, particularly in your IELTS test on the day, and I really hope to be hearing from you about how well you've done.